Hey guys, what is up? I'm MTG Bluefire here, and today I'm bringing you a deck of Magic the Gathering, and it is what I call my Sundial of the Infinite deck. Basically, it involves around this artifact using Mimic Vat and also a mill deck as a mono blue deck. So let's get right into it. So the deck, there is a total of 25 lands, all islands. It contains Steady Progress, which is a really good card for the deck because of the proliferate, and it just lets you draw a card, which is not that bad anyways. Still, Rebuttal, I have this in here instead of a cancel because it's just better because you can get the Metalcraft ability pretty easily using this deck. 4 Mana Leaks, and 4 Jace's Erasures. These are a really core part of the deck in case you guys don't know what it is, just in case. Whenever you draw a card, you may have the opponent put the top card of his library into the graveyard, so it helps a ton with the mill. Now right now, I'm just trying to get more of these. Yes, I'm proxying a common, but Merfolk Looter helps shift through your deck to get the things you need. Not a bad 2-drop creature. Then I have a new rare, which is called Jace's Archivist. Basically, it's a 2/2 for 3 that you can pay 1 blue mana and tap it, and each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards this player discarded that way. That was a tongue twister. But the idea is that you use this a ton, and you don't really care about what you have in your hand, as long as you have out this and a few other artifacts and other things. So basically, you are having them get rid of cards that they want, which is always helpful. Next card, the creature in this deck, and the final creature is Solemn Simulacrum, which I just call him Solemn Golem. But basically, he's a 2/2 for 4. When he enters the battlefield, you can search your library for basic land, put him in the battlefield tapped, shuffle your library, and when he dies, you get a draw card. And he is a really, really important creature in this deck, which you will see in a little bit. Next card I have in here is Grind Clock. And this is actually one of the cards you'll have a harder time finding because nobody just carries it around. But you can tap it, put a charge counter, and tap it, and have them mill cards equal to the number of charge counters on Grind Clock. And that is where the Steady Progress comes in with its proliferation ability. It helps out there too. The next thing I have is a Unwinding Clock, which untap all artifacts you control during during each other player's untap step. And this helps untap your Grind Clocks, your Sundials, and then the other card I'm going to be getting to, which is this. I'm proxying right now, but it's going to be a Lux Cannon, so you can search for some removal. And now, here's a really core part to the deck, Sundial of the Infinite. This is a really interesting card. It released in the M12. So its ability is you can pay 1 and tap it, and you just end the turn. Activate this only your turn. And you may be wondering, well, what the hell are you going to be using this for? Well, what I found out during a draft that I went to is that Sundial of the Infinite can be used to counter yourself from drawing a card. So with Jace's Archivist, you're also somewhat milling yourself to death. And this is a problem. Eventually, you will come by a Sundial of the Infinite, which you would just play it. And then when you somehow, if you can get down to 1 card with no cards in your deck, what happens is you say, in this, at the beginning of my upkeep, I use Sundial of the Infinite's ability and I end my turn. This prevents you from drawing and prevents you from milling yourself to death while your opponent is still slowly milling himself to death. That's actually likely that you will get down to that little card before your opponent does because of Jace's Erasure. But just in case, it's there. But this is the other reason it's here. Mimic Vat. Now, if you don't know what Mimic Vat does, it's a very good artifact. And basically, whenever a creature dies from the battlefield to the graveyard, you can exile it. You can only have 1 card exiled with Mimic Vat, and you can pay 3 and tap Mimic Vat to put a token. It gains haste, but you have to exile it at the beginning of your end step. And so, what you do is, you exile Solemn Golem, or Jace's Archivist, or Merfolk Looter, and you just keep on making copies of it for 3. Preferably Solemn Golem, because then you'll be mana ramping very well. And then, when it comes time for Mimic Vat's other ability, which exile it at the beginning of the end step, you simply use Sundial of the Infinite's ability. And one of the things that it directly says on there is exile all spells and abilities on the stack. This will allow you to keep your tokens that you're getting from the Mimic Vat and repeatedly use them. You can also untap the Mimic Vat using the Unwinding Clock, and you can also snipe off permanents with Lux Cannon. This accelerates the deck extremely well and makes it very fast. So, I have tested out this deck, and it is working okay so far. It is not exactly the best deck, but I have to tell you, it is a blast to play, and it is great to be able to say that you have made a deck using Sundial of the Infinite as a very key component to it. I haven't created a sideboard yet for it, but here are some of the considerations I have. Vapor Snag. For 1, you can just return target creature to its owner's hand, they lose a life. This is actually really helpful creature removal because this deck doesn't have any. Here's more creature removal. Psychic Barrier. For 2 islands, counter target creature spell is controller loses 1 life. So it helps you get rid of creatures since creature pounding is a definite weakness in this deck. The next is pretty obvious choice, which would be Flash Freeze. This was reprinted at M12. And by the way, all of this deck that I'm showing you right now is going to be legal after Innistrad comes out. So you still will be able to use this deck for a little bit. And another card I'm considering right now is Dividation, which is just draw 2 cards. It works extremely well with Jace's Erasure, because if you're using Jace's Archivist against them with 2 Jace's Erasures out, and let's say you have the highest amount of cards is 4, you're discarding 4 and drawing 4, and they're milling 8 on top of the 4 that they're drawing. So that's 12 cards every time you use a Jace's Archivist. If you equip it onto the Mimic Vat, it works really well. But Mimic Vat works well with any creature on here. And I would say that this entire deck ties together extremely well. By the way, all the cards that are flipped over are proxies. I'm still working on getting more of these. So I will give you guys an update on more of what's going on with this deck. Alright, hope you guys enjoy this deck. See you later.